You are going to be learning a little bit more about HTML5 Canvas. There is a Canvas element in HTML5, and it is used to draw graphics. What is a little bit weird is that, yeah, it's part of HTML5, but all of the commands that you have to use are JavaScript commands. Okay, so you can't really interact with the canvas just using HTML. So basically with the canvas tag, you are going to use canvas because that's the name of the element. You're going to have an ID that you specify because you do need to target that ID. And then you're going to give the canvas a width and a height. Then in between the opening and closing tags, you might want to display a message that browser doesn't support HTML5, although I honestly can't imagine any browser not supporting it now. But I suppose if they have a super old computer, it is possible. So the canvas element can be styled just like any other element. So you can have margins, borders, backgrounds, all of that kind of stuff for the canvas tag. And in order to actually render content in Canvas, you have to use JavaScript. So we are going to kind of go through these different rendering commands so you are familiar with what they do. So the first thing that you're going to be doing is basically using GetContext to tell it if you are going to do a 2D or a 3D drawing. So we're going to be talking about 2D. If you are interested in 3D, I did include a link, but there's a lot more examples on the web with 2D than there is 3D. So for 2D, we have to have some kind of a variable that's going to be our canvas object. And then we connect that to our canvas ID. Then we take the canvas object that we created, use GetContext, and tell it, hey, we're creating a 2D drawing. Okay, and we store that in a rendering object. So in code, it would look something like this. I've got something I'm calling canvas object, something I'm calling render object, and you can see how that works in the code. Once you've set this up, you're actually ready to start creating the image itself. So I gave you a little skeleton here, and I threw it into VS Code because I'm going to go through and demo some of this as we are doing it. And we'll talk about how to do straight lines and circles and all of that fun stuff. But I do think it is super helpful if you sketch out on a piece of paper what it is that you want to draw. Because for drawing anything, you basically have to move to the starting location. And the upper left corner has a position of 0, 0. Okay, so that is the upper left corner. And it's super helpful then if you've drawn this out because you know how far from the left you need to start and how far from the top. Okay, so this upper left corner is giving you a coordinate for the left and for the top. If you have a canvas with a width of 350 and a height of 150, your lower right corner is position 350, 150. So you've got your upper left 0, 0, your lower right 350 and 150. And so I'm going to try to open up some software and draw this in with these numbers so that you can kind of see how this looks visually. Because unless you start sketching this stuff down and you can kind of visualize it, it's going to be super hard for you to use Canvas. So if I want to draw a line, let's say, diagonal about halfway down, I'd start at 0, 0, and I'd just drag it about halfway. Okay. And so remembering that this, my particular canvas that I created over here, I made it 550, I believe, by 550. Okay. So if I'm going to go about halfway across, that would be 225. And then if I'm going to go halfway down, that would be 225. So below this code, above my script, is where I would put the code to move it to the starting point, choose an ending point, and then add the stroke. So what that looks like for code is this. So I'm going to copy, I've already got the beginning here. So it's just my render object move to, and then where I want it to end, and then telling it to create the stroke. So let me come over here, paste this in, and I'm going to have to adjust this just a little bit. Because I am doing a little different dimension in my canvas. So I said 225, 225, and then I tell it to stroke. So let me save this. And I had a little typo in here that I fixed. Let me go over here. And now you can see that that's about halfway. And any change I make to this is going to affect where that line goes. And if I wanted more than one line, I could go through this whole little process again. So let me go back over here. And let's say now I want a line from here to here, right? So let me do another one. And normally when I do things like this, I just do it on a piece of paper. It does help you to visualize everything. So this is going to be from my middle. So that is 225 over. And then, so this is 225, 225. That's my starting point. And then my ending point, so I'm going to be, for the left, it's going to be 0 and then 550 down from the top. So here I'm starting at 225. And I'm going to do the line to 0 and 550. And then I'm going to stroke that. So let me save it and reload. Okay, so it's drawn in that. So as I said, it is helpful to kind of visualize, and you have to just remember that the upper left is 0, 0, lower right is 550, 550. Okay, and this little point here would be 0 from the left, 550 down. So this point up here is 550 from the left and 0 down. Okay, so that is how you do lines. And if you want to play with this, you can go over here and you can see that they've got my canvas identified. You can adjust the width and the height and do the border, whatever you want. This is a 2D, and this is what they are calling the render object. And you have to use that render object to move the lines, to stroke the lines. And you could actually do a complicated drawing in here if you wanted to. So that was a straight line. To do a circle, you still have to say that you're beginning a path. And then you have to actually give it a little bit more information, right? Because it's a circle, so it needs to know what kind of angle you want for the start and the end. It needs to know your starting point, and it also needs to know what kind of an arch you want. So to create a circle, you are going to have a start angle of 0 and an end angle of 2 times math dot pi. So basically, you're going to set up the parameters for the circle, and then you have to fill it in with ink. So stroke or fill is what you can use. Stroke just gives you the outside of the circle. Fill puts color on the inside. Okay, so that is the difference. So if we come over here, you can kind of take a look. They use stroke on that. And if I change stroke to fill, now it's filled in. Could I do some additional circles like inside here? Yeah, I mean, you can make a little happy face or whatever you want. Could I make flowers? Yes, I could. Okay, so you can do all sorts of stuff with this. But again, I do think it's super helpful to kind of visualize it first, kind of jot it down. That will help you know what to use for starting and ending points. For rectangles, the fill style is used to define the color, because you guys are probably wondering at this point, oh my gosh, do I just have to fill everything in with black? No, you do not. Okay, so in a rectangle, fill style will let you specify color. And the way you do color is the same way that you do it in HTML. RGB values, color names, hex values. And you need to define the fill style before you draw the object, obviously. If you wanted to use gradients or patterns, you can do that as well. So looking here, I am specifying my canvas object, my render object, and you can see that I have a fill style of Alice Blue. And then here is the rectangle I'm creating, and that's the rectangle in the back. Another thing that you need to kind of be aware of with this is that the rendering order affects whether things are above or below. So this larger rectangle is on the bottom because it is rendered first. Okay, so I made that one blue. You can see I have a pink one that I've rendered on top, and they're all different dimensions. So for blue and pink, I use the color names, but then we get into the hex value, which is this rectangle here, and then I've got an RGB value as well. Okay, and what I'm giving it is the left position and the top position, and then how wide and how tall I want it. So we've got left and top, width and height, okay, for your rectangles. So if I wanted to do something super simple, and let's say I wanted to do like a house. And I wanted to, let's say, Photoshop happens to have this stuff in here. Do something like this, super easy. And go like that. This is not going to be perfect because I am trying to do it fast. Okay. Just a quick little house, okay? And we'll pretend this is in the middle. So I would have to render out 2 lines, and then I would render out my rectangle. And so for my first line, I'd probably put that halfway through. And so this is going to be 225 and 225. The line I'm going to have to, let's see, how far from the left do I want that? Oh, let's say 50. And actually, that's not 225 down. I'm going to say that's 50 down. 50, and it's about 225. Okay, so that'd be my first line. Stroke that one. And for my second line, if I start it here, 225 is fine. And then I would go to 500 because I made it 550 wide. No, that would be 225 and 50. So you have to really think this through. So then here I would do 500 over from the left. And I would make it down. $225. We'll see how that looks. Let me save this. So there's a lot of trial and error with this, just so you know. Okay, yep, that still looks a little sickly, but I'm just going to live with it. Then, where did I go? I went 225, and that's over 50. And that was over 50, 225 down. So I would probably, for my rectangle, if I want it right about here, probably make it from the left 75, maybe. Like I said, trial and error. So let me copy that code for a rectangle. Oh, maybe I'll make it pink. Wouldn't that be lovely? Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm making it pink, and from the left, let me try 250. From the top, it's not going to be, it's going to actually, from the left, that's more going to be like 75. And from the top, it's about 200. So let me adjust that. So this point I am saying is about 75. Actually, no, it's got to be more than 75. Okay, so we had 225 here, and that's 225. That's going to be 200. Okay. So you have to really think this through. 75 over is right. 200 down. Oh, I think that'll be okay. This is not going to be quite right. So over here, if that's the middle, this is 550. That's 500. 475 maybe. So I might want it 225 wide. And we'll make it 175. We'll see how this looks. All right, let me save. Oh my goodness, yeah. So that needs to be much wider. Okay. But like I said, it is trial and error. Okay, let's make that much wider. Okay, now it's too wide. Let's try it again. Okay, getting better. I would probably decrease it just a little bit, but you can kind of get an idea of how this works and appreciate really nice designs because this is not super easy to do. So what I would recommend is that you guys kind of copy some of these. These are all things that I played with because here is additional things you can do with rectangles. And you can see that I put a rectangle inside a rectangle. And I made it white, and then I did another one where I just did a stroke and not a fill. This green one has a stroke and a fill defined. Okay, so here's the stroke, here's the fill. And you can actually draw something like this if you wanted to do triangles. Basically, it's a bunch of line twos, and then you're filling it in. Okay, and so is this. We have to position the lines to draw the triangle, and then you are filling it in. And for this one, you'll notice that we do close the path and then stroke it. Okay, so here's another example. Here's another one not filled in, but you can see we've got like a half arch here. And this is how we created that. So as I went through here, I did try to give you lots and lots of examples to play with. But as I mentioned, this is going to be totally trial and error. And it certainly helps if you draw it out first. Okay, and if you want to copy this code, and then customize it, you can. Okay, that's why I'm giving you all of the code for this. I'm also giving you links so that you can try this stuff out live. Okay, that's another one that I created, and you are going to have to do a canvas drawing. Okay, and this shows you how to do some gradients as well. There's a ton you can do with Canvas. So it is helpful for you guys to become familiar with it. And we are going to be doing a game in Canvas. I have links to all sorts of creative things that were done with Canvas. And next week, you are going to be walking through a tutorial to create a Canvas game. So this week, you're going to have to do a logo in Canvas, and it's just to get you used to working with it.